We've seen a lot of people within the last 2 years actually make a big jump for AI and then getting pulled back. Just be careful using AI content for your website. I know you want to do it fast and cheap, but you got to give content value, right? You just got to give it the value that it deserves because you're speaking to human. You want to make sure you give them the best effort.
Hey everyone, Bo Royal here, co-founder and CEO of Pareto Legal, a marketing agency that helps injury lawyers increase their profits with digital strategy, online advertising, and analytics. You're listening to the Pareto Legal podcast, where we feature world-class attorneys, entrepreneurs, and legal experts. And today I'm joined by Alex Valencia, CEO of We Do Web, a content marketing and SEO agency for law firms. I'm excited to have him on the podcast today to share his insights and experiences. Alex, thank you very much for being on the podcast today, man.
Bo, man, good to be here. Thanks so much for having me. Excited.
Absolutely. Let's dive right into it because I have a ton of questions for you. I'm really curious about your perspective on all things SEO for law firms. First being, what are the unique challenges that law firms face in digital marketing and SEO compared to other industries?
Well, in the legal industry, the competition's just become so saturated, and it's always been saturated, even before digital. I mean, like people were going after yellow pages back in the day, right? The trick was, how do I get on the first page, right? So law firms were using the letter A back then, right, just to be on the first page, and then they were buying quarter ad pages, half page, and then full page. So it's just exponentially grown and just become harder and harder for them to compete, but there's still competition, right? A lot of people have imposter syndrome and they're afraid to start in the digital space. But even with a small office, right, you can kind of get going. But it all really comes down to all the other work you're doing. Like we've been talking about recently for 2025, what I saw in 2024, a lot of people start to do. I think 2025 is going to be the big year for people to really get back and get involved in the community. Right? Yeah, you need digital. Yeah, you need ads. Yeah, you need radio. But if you're not acting and out in front of the people, branding yourself to be able to compete against the giants in the market, you're going to go unseen. So they need to be seeing you at the kids' baseball games, at the church, at the local supermarket, giving stuff away. So 2025, I know my business partner probably wrote something, did a lead magnet or something, or teaching attorneys about um, getting involved in community events in 2025 and how that's going to help grow your law firm. And we've seen it. We've seen our clients really start growing. They've been doing it for about, from the beginning, but they really started making a bigger effort into do it. So I think that's a good way to start separating yourself from some of the giants and some of the other law firms that don't have the time or want to put in the work. They just want to go hardcore, pay for ads or just do hardcore digital. But this is an opportunity for smaller law firms to really get involved.
Agreed. It seems like those types of events enable the David, if you will, to segment themselves away from Goliath. And if you are a firm that solely is based in like San Antonio, Texas, you should really lean into that and use that as part of your positioning so that you can go toe to toe with the bigger budget folks like the Morgan and Morgans or the Top Dog, so on and so forth. So that makes a lot of sense. I want to ask you about content marketing because I do know it's a big part of your service. Can you discuss the importance of content marketing for attorneys and how it influences client acquisition?
Yeah. So content marketing, I mean, that's been we were the pioneers in legal content writing. We started this in 2008. So content's always been the backbone of everything we do, and also still content is king, right? It's funny though, because now in this age, when you say the word content, people think social media or video content, but Google's still only reading what's written, right? And then even enhancing it with something like schema and coding, but Google still reads content, and it's important to have the right amount of content that the user is looking for, right? Keywords are still important, even though Google keeps pushing it down, organic down, just so they can continue to enhance their paid. But Google's still looking at content. It's still working with AI right? AI is still reading and looking for it. So even if you're using ChatGPT, it's pulling from either Bing or it's going to eventually pull from Google to be able to see that content. So law firms really still need to have a holistic content strategy that's not only for every single location that they have, but more importantly, for every practice area they have. So we concentrate on building robust content strategies 6 months ahead of time, just to be able to fill that gap that their competitors might not have. And even in smaller locations that they might not have offices or practice areas that they typically would not do, to try to drive in additional revenue that they didn't know about that might be easier to compete in, as opposed to something like car accident or slip and fall.
Agreed. The other kind of side to SEO, I mean, there's different sides to it, right? You have technical SEO, you have content marketing and things like that. I want to talk a little bit about local SEO. Can you talk about what the key components are of an effective local SEO strategy for law firms?
Well, one is having the right location and hopefully in a place that's not super saturated, right? You just got to be careful being in a building where there's other law firms, because that could be confusing. But having that set up location, and then Google tells you exactly, right. The guidelines are there in the Google Webmaster Guidelines on how to set up your profile. And there might be other additional tips and tricks that some experts out there know, but it's really completing everything to the best knowledge that you have, to be interactive with it. Reviews are huge, right? So going in and filling out your local profile is going to be absolutely important. Getting citations to it, even though some people don't believe the citations help, it helps. Every little bit helps. If your competitors are doing it, you want to make sure you're doing that. But reviews, that's really affecting it. Staying consistent with adding images, right? Having a location where you can go video, where you can take pictures, where you can have your staff do things on it. And just completing that profile as best as you can, and continuously adding and being aware of any new changes or additions they're doing to it. Google's always messing around with it. About 3 weeks ago, Google passed out an algorithm that kind of shut down a lot of people's Maps presence, which was detrimental to law firms. But they were able to pick it back up within about 24 hours. But still, law firms struggle with their Google business profile because a lot of the business is actually coming from there, right? People are using Maps. So it's actually been pushed organic down. It's still part of organic. And the other part, going back to your question about content, ranking locally is tied to the ranking of the page that you write for that location as well, right? So if you're ranking, we've seen the correlation. If you're ranking third position organically, you're probably ranking third position on the maps as well, because Google's looking at those pages that you write to be able to also rank on your Google local profile.
Yeah, it's amazing. With the clients we work with, obviously we're helping them set up, their tracking and their analytics. We get insight into how much lead, call, and case volume that the Google business profile listing is driving, right? Like just by having a unique tracking number in that. And so it seems like getting all of those components in place with local SEO specifically it's a prerequisite for success now. It's not like an option anymore. Like if you want to get cases in your target market, you need to do all the things that you just listed. In terms of mistakes that you're seeing firms make with SEO today, can you talk a little bit about that and how they can be avoided? In other words, what are the most common mistakes you're seeing law firms make today?
A lot of law firms are using their blog, and the blog takes a lot of market share from the actual page content. So they're either not creating the right content that users are looking for, which is the money pages, like your practice area pages, your car accident, your slip and fall, your estate planning, your family, your divorce, and even the sister or child pages from those parent pages that you could potentially be writing are being cannibalized by the blog. So just because you heard years ago that a blog is important, you want to make sure you're really tying in and pulling your content strategy around the main pages of or your money pages for the website. So always think that the blog is one of the biggest mistakes people make. The other one is, H1s, H2s. The H1 is huge. It's a big one that I see a lot of the time. Taxonomy, URL structure is a big one that people mess up. They're not consistent with it. It's hard to read. No breadcrumbs or internal linking on a website. When, we're getting a little technical, but once you're building the foundation of everything, right? From the top of the page title, URL structure, H1s, the depth within the content, right? Writing thin content. A lot of Google's really getting heavy on thin content. It's been for years. So making sure you're paying attention to those things. Those are several mistakes that I see happen a lot of the time.
I wonder to what extent the blog issue is attributed to agencies like yours, not your agency specifically, but other SEO agencies continuing to sell that type of tactic. It seems like it's an easy thing to sell, right? Because you can be like, well, I'm going to create a blog article for you. I'm going to get you all this traffic. But then the question becomes, how does that traffic equate to commercial value? How does that equate to actual revenue in cases? And yeah, I the other side of that too is like, it seems like with generative AI now, people are less apt to use a blog to get their question answered. Like they're just going to get that from, you know, an AI, you know.
Right. Especially with, yeah, I know. I mean, I'm guilty of using it now. So that's why it's important to make sure you have the right content. So, and with that said, when you're creating content for your website to answer those questions, which used to be like the featured snippet and now is being pulled for AI, is to write good frequently asked questions. But to do that correctly, you want to make sure that's interlinked correctly with the parent page that that's associated to, right? So again, that's why content strategy, taxonomy, and the architecture of the website go hand in hand. It's so important for ranking correctly, and being able to answer the right questions where you're not cannibalizing the parent page. A blog is an evergreen, right? Evergreen. It could be like good for like 3 weeks or something like that, and then it's no longer relevant content. So you got to be careful that you're always writing evergreen content. So instead of the blog, maybe just writing frequently asked questions that answer specific questions that have already been put in that parent page.
And the parent page, meaning like the high value practice area pages, because those are like the gold mine from a lead quality and case perspective. Like, you know, if you can rank for keywords that specify practice area plus, you know, the market you serve, those are very high commercial value keywords.
Yeah. And then even just answering a question, why hire a Colorado personal injury lawyer? Why hire a Denver family lawyer? You know, questions like that that would be internally in your parent page, you would create a more robust frequently asked question to interlink with that. So it's hopefully pulled for featured snippet or that AI.
You already kind of answered this, but I want to take it a step further into the future. So, number one, how has the SEO landscape changed for law firms over the last few years, and where do you see it going over the next, you know, 12 to 24 months?
I think it's getting more difficult. I think it's still going to be on content just because of the AI portion of it, right? We've seen a lot of people within the last 2 years actually make a big jump for AI and then getting pulled back. I was having this conversation with a couple of SEOs at the conference this week where people were still talking AI, but still Google wants human written content. So first off, just be careful using AI content for your website. I know you want to do it fast and cheap, but you got to give content value, right? You just got to give it the value that it deserves because you're speaking to humans, right? You're not, you want to make sure you give them the best effort. Um, Secondly is 2025 or 2024 was like the worst year for SEO, at least in the legal space, right? Like I've never seen so many algorithms hit, so many sites affected, and not even a huge effect, but like just a little bit of traffic affects somebody's business, right? And it wasn't just in legal. There was a whole bunch of stuff that happened in e-commerce of websites that went down for weeks and people lost their businesses. So Google's been making a lot of changes. I think just staying consistent with their guidelines and just know that you can't just put all your eggs in one basket, right? You got to be doing digital. You want to be doing paid. You want to be doing, let's say, and you got to go back to those community events, right? The referral partnerships and the businesses you build. You can't, some people call me sometimes. They're like, "Hey, can we do more money? Can we invest more in digital?" I'm like, "Well, what else are you doing?" Right? Because I think I set a budget on purpose so we can build a plan, right? We do an 18-month plan for our clients. I'm not going to raise the budget unless we see something, right? Okay, hey, I think we're going to need some robust links here because the pages aren't ranking or there's not authority to it. Then we might say, hey, we just need some temporary money. But more money isn't really going to move the dial that much anymore, right? It's really strategic, steady. Google doesn't want to see too much happening all at one time and then doing again, the community events and having like a full spoke model when it comes to your marketing, right? Your website is your home, but what leads into it? What are you doing? Are you doing newsletters? Are you doing networking? Are you doing referral partnerships, paid, social? Just everything has to go hand in hand and working on it all together.
That's a perfect segue because I wanted to ask about the role that websites play into all of this, and more specifically, what role does website design, the site as a whole, user experience play into the SEO strategy for law firms?
It's huge. User experience is still now one of the big things, right? Because we can get a person to a website, right? If we can get you to rank, we can get you to click. But once they click, if your design doesn't tell the person what to do next, you might lose them, right? So user experience is gonna be it's has always been huge, right? But it just keeps getting better with design and more ideas and more products out there that you can do to keep the person on the site or move them along the funnel to get them to convert, right? That's why legal sites have such a bad bounce rate is because you just want them to pick up the phone and call, right? Fill up form, right? It's an immediate thing. So you don't want them, if they are doing research, they're probably not ready to move forward. So they're going to read the blog, FAQ, or bounce around and go to other pages. But if they're ready to sign up and go with a lawyer, they're just going to pick up the phone and go. So how do we lead them there? How do we keep it simple enough for the user to get the information they want and say, okay, this is the lawyer I want to hire? And that's not just digital, right? That's the branding, right? Did they recognize the law firm when they clicked on Google's homepage, right? In the first, second, or whatever position they were they a recognizable law firm, and that's why they clicked?
You mentioned that last year was arguably like the worst year for SEO for law firms. And I wanted to, and to be more precise, you said that because there were a lot of algorithm changes in the way that Google was ranking websites, specifically for lawyers. How can law firms stay updated with the latest SEO trends and algorithm changes so that they, you know, stay relevant, keep ranking, so on and so forth? Because it seems like it's just this constantly changing organism. How do they stay on top of it all?
I love it when a law firm has a marketing department of people that are staying on top, right? Because there are advocates and they're their own advocate, right? They play devil's advocate for themselves, and they're educated. Some lawyers are really into SEO and marketing, so them staying on top of the articles and understanding, working with a partner like us that's continuously telling them what's going on, is transparent even in good times and bad times. Like, look, dude, this is kind of what we're seeing. Um, we want to make some shifts on some things, or we just want to keep the needle moving. Google's making changes. Yeah, it did affect us, but we know we're doing everything correctly. Let's just stay on track and keep moving forward. Um, that's all you really can do, right? We can't read what they're going to do next, and a lot of it's mistakes, right? Google, it does make mistakes. They're not, they set the bar on what we need to do. But for instance, I had a client in a certain market. I forget what market it was in, but when you did a search for car accident lawyer, Google was only rendering personal injury lawyer pages. So there was a huge Google error. It was out of probably 12 people between page 1 and 2, even in the map rankings, they were using the keyword personal injury lawyer as opposed to car accident lawyer, except for two lawyers that were on there that it was going. And these were all law firms that had specific car accident pages for that location. So Google was missing out on that. It's recently been fixed. But they do make errors, right? And that doesn't come back down to the marketing company or the law firm. It's just like, hey, we got to play by Google's game. And that sucks because it affects lives, right? A month of people not going to your car accident page could be several cases.
Yeah, the thing I take from that answer is like number one, you need to have someone on the law firm side that's keeping track of what's been done, what's worked historically, and that gives you a better footing on kind of what to do next, right? You need to have that historic context. So, if you're constantly bringing on a new vendor and all of that data and those learnings, it's kind of like hitting the reset button every time. You're not going to be in a great position long term. The other side of it is like willing to like test and make mistakes. It seems like and then being expect more changes to come down the line. And you said it before too. You were like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Like if your firm is 90% of your case volume is coming from Google pay per click or social media or SEO, that's a really risky position to be in long term. So you need to do your best to figure out other tactics to generate leads, generate cases, so that, God forbid, one of those things goes kaput, it doesn't put your business under. I wanted to ask too about social media, because I know there is some interplay between social media and SEO. How can law firms leverage social media platforms to complement their SEO and their content marketing efforts?
Well, in the simplest forms, they want to make sure they are on all the social platforms, and those social platforms are linking back to the website, right? Those are just natural links that they need to have. Also, that's just where people are searching, right? Like, they might not be looking for an attorney there, but the information, right? Good videos, good content, anything that's fun that could be used to leverage your brand, right? It could be the new commercial opportunity for you at much lower cost, and people are using, like you mentioned, Top Dog earlier, right? He's created a huge national following for himself by creating content that, and not even creating, some of it's been curated from other people doing it, but him slapping his information or opinion on it is very helpful, right? People like to see the humanization of people, and misery loves company. So I think leverage social media as much as you can, but again, strategically, right? You can't go after it and just say, "Hey, well, I'm going to hire somebody to do it." You got to make sure you're hiring somebody that it's a cohesive plan that's linking to the site. It's part of the links. You're not recreating content just for the social platform, but you're using it holistically in everything, and repurposing it all so you're branded correctly. But have fun with it, right? Have fun, because people don't want, boring legal content. They want to be able to see something that's creative or something that's going to change, right? People are looking for knowledge. Like, how can lawyers educate? I think criminal lawyers have a huge opportunity of talking about DUIs, or how to not get arrested, or what to do if you're arrested, right? Teaching your kids about, hey, if you ever get pulled over, don't say anything till your parents get there, right? That's all good information that some people don't know. Silly laws that are out there, right? But leveraging social media is huge because it's such an amazing platform. And if you have someone that's internal, that's okay with becoming that character and that face of social media, it's going to benefit you.
How important is video today? I assume that you're talking with your clients all the time about putting out video content.
Yeah, we've been, video content's been important for years. Um, and now with the opportunity of transcribing and using tools like AI, because Google can't read the video, right? So it's good to have the video because it's visual, it's part of the user experience, but you need to transcribe it. You could use tools, AI tools, or a marketing company like us to recreate the content for it. But with those videos, you could chop them up, put them in social media, right? One 3-minute video can be 6 90-second videos, right? That are giving tons of information. Now you have a month's worth of content there. So it's not just the content part of it, but the value of it as teasers, using it in your newsletter, using it for new clients. Every lawyer should have the 3 steps to working with us, or how to fire your attorney, or, videos about information that people need when they're going through intake, and what the next steps are going to be.
I feel like video, if done well, it can enhance existing SEO success, right? So if you're already ranking well for certain keywords, like incorporating some video on those pages to make the page more engaging, and using it on the flip side as a mechanism to create a like blog page or like a supporting piece of content that links to that main practice area page, right? So are you having your clients do both of those things?
Yeah, we recommend it a lot. We don't create our own video content, but when we do refer, like, having a YouTube channel where all the video is stored, or Vivo, right? Vivo doesn't really have ads or anything like that. So if you're gonna have video on your site, you're better off putting it on Vivo so people can click away and go and get lost in YouTube. But having a YouTube channel that kind of mirrors the practice areas and pages that you have on your site to interlink between both of them could be a big benefit.
What advice would you give to law firms just starting to invest in SEO?
Do your homework and be patient. Again, don't put all your eggs in that one basket. Like figure out what your budget is, right? Where are you starting? What can you do on your own if you don't have a huge budget? Um, Read Google Webmaster Guidelines. Go in there and see what the rules are. I'm not saying go in and try to reverse engineer what the Google patents are, but at least Google Webmaster Guidelines will guide you and tell you exactly what you need to do. And then get advice, right? If you're working with someone, don't be afraid to ask any people that are out there that have been successful and see if you could get any information. Follow blog posts that SEO agencies are putting out there. Don't just look at legal. Always pay attention to navigation. Right? Navigation is everything. It's how everything's read. So if you're going to go out there and try to build your own website, go to one of the successful sites and see how it's done, how breadcrumbing's done. But if you don't know how to do it, just try to leave it to the experts because you don't want to make a huge mistake, right? That's because we've seen a lot of mistakes, and I've seen some attorneys that actually have done a really good job diving in and learning SEO and building their own site. And then it just needs a little help. But technical SEO is huge. It's real. It's important. Before you start adding content and creating links to a site, you want to make sure that website is crawlable. So make sure you're hiring a company that's not just a design company, because anybody can design a site. You can get a graphic designer, but it takes an SEO to really build out the architecture and the technical SEO for the website to work for Google.
And last question, what metrics should law firms focus on to measure the success of their SEO and their content marketing campaigns?
Great question. So we're big on attribution as well. First one is you want to make sure you're getting phone numbers, right, for everything that you do. So working with someone like CallRail or Call Tracking Metrics, phone numbers should be attached to everything that you do organically, both on your Google Local and all the pages that you're using. That'll help track and see and figure out where phone calls are coming from. Traffic is a great driver, right? When you're starting an SEO strategy, starting to see a good slow amount of traffic. And this is good relevant traffic, right? You want to make sure it's not from the blog, right? Because you could post local news blogs and that's going to falsely increase traffic, right? So it's a false positive. You want to make sure the content that you're creating is driving traffic that is going to enhance your business in the future. I'd say it takes, you can know within 2 months if an SEO strategy is working with the steady growth. But for you to start really seeing cases and stuff, 9 to 18 months is probably good, especially a newer law firm. But tracking phone numbers, tracking the traffic, making sure you have a plan for the terms that you're going after. And it's hard with the terms because with semantic search, right, every term is different. So you could rank for a specific keyword, but then other variations of it have a lot of value. So understanding what the value of those key terms are on those pages is a good tracking mechanism as far as like the beginning growth of a page. But essentially, what you want to be paying attention to is how many more leads am I getting? Is that number of leads correlate with the amount of traffic that I'm getting? And then what's that percentage of that is converting to actual cases? So really just the importance to any law firm is how many cases am I increasing by? And then just working with a good partner that kind of breaks that down mathematically. Like when we do a proposal for somebody, it's kind of a little bit out there. It's conservative and it's a what if. So if we create a proposal, what if you ranked in the 3rd position for every page that we're going to create? This is the amount of traffic that could potentially come to the website if you ranked in 3rd position. And if you ranked in 3rd position and people had the click-through rate for this amount of key terms, this could be potentially the amount of cases you could get. So there's an overall idea mathematically of, hey, it's possible I can take market share. There's market share for me to take from there, right? So that also helps us create budget. Is this budget realistic to take market share from some of the giants that are out there mathematically? And we love doing that. And then that's how we do attribution. Okay, so based on this number, how do we get to this number within 18 months? And how do we start seeing that growth? And then do we get to a point where it's like, okay, I think that this is as much market share as we're going to get, right? This is it. Like, I think we hit our cap and now we just maintain because now our competitors are trying to get to where we want to get to.
I'm no SEO expert, but I think the way you all do it is the right way. I think the long story short there is whatever forecasting you're doing with your SEO plans, make sure that it ties to actual business outcomes, i.e. cases, and then make sure that you have the tracking mechanisms in place to be able to see a month, a quarter, a year later, whether or not those efforts actually equated to cases, right? There has to be some methodology, like you said, to calculate if we do X, we think we're going to get Y in terms of cases. And then, like we said, just make sure that you have the tracking in place so that you can do that attribution down the line. This is one of the most efficient podcasts we've done. We got through so many questions, so many great topics very, very quickly. Alex, thank you again for doing this. How can our listeners learn more about We Do Web?
They can go to wedoweb.com. You can follow me on Instagram, Alexander Valencia. I post tons of content on there, educating people not only on SEO, but marketing or entrepreneurship, spirituality, everything. But check us out on wedoweb.com. Be happy to help anybody with a free content and SEO audit, and maybe even give you those numbers if you're ready to see what mathematically you can do, potentially rank for. And if there's market share in your market, even if you're thinking of doing a new practice area, we'd love to help out. That's another thing a lot of people are doing now too, is introducing new practice areas and not really diversifying, but adding new additional areas where they might want to see some growth.
Very, very cool. Thank you again, Alex. And thank you everyone for tuning into this episode of the Pareto Legal Podcast. We'll see you next time for another episode.
Thanks, Bo.